Hello, everybody. This is Drew Patterson with Zink Food Service, a Paradigm company, and we are doing our industry chats. And today I'm lucky enough to have Mary Angela Miller with me, and she is the owner of KeepSafe Food and an instructor for the Ohio State University. So, Mary, welcome, and thank you for agreeing to do this.
Sure thing.
Yeah, and so we've been doing these chats with people that have some different backgrounds, some very interesting backgrounds that have made great careers in the food service industry. And we're kind of doing a deep dive of how they got into it, um, where their career took them, some of the highlights, how they built teams and really motivated and navigated the what could be described as difficult waters of the food service industry at times.
For sure.
So I thought of no one better than you because you have a very impressive and storied career. And then we just kind of want to find out how you got into that and what kept you there for so long. So where did you get started in this career?
Well, you may or may not know, you and I have worked together, but I was already in food service by the time you came into Ohio State. But I'm a registered dietitian, and I grew up around amazing food. My mother, Italian grandmother, just a great cook. Not only did she cook for us, and there were 10 children in my family, there was a convent across the street, and she cooked for those nuns as well.
Oh, wow.
All out of this little tiny kitchen. And every week she would make homemade sauce and bread, and I just took good food for granted.
Yeah.
But I'm not a good cook. I did not get that. So one of the reasons I think I was attracted to food and nutrition was it was a way to get into the industry and hang around maybe with chefs like you and get to eat good food, even though I couldn't make it themselves.
Yeah.
So for many, many years, I was a dietitian, a very clinical dietitian. When I went to Cleveland Clinic, I was the first dietitian to go in the intensive care units and work with that kind of feeding.
Oh, wow.
And people said, why are you going into ICU? They don't eat there, right? And I'm saying, well, they do. They just don't eat food.
Yeah.
So, I was a very clinical dietitian before I moved to Columbus and worked in a weight management program.
Okay. Now, I have to, did any of your siblings get the culinary gene from your mom?
I would say that at least two of my sisters are excellent cooks.
Okay.
But they didn't go into the industry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I've always known you to appreciate great food, which is, that makes life so much easier, for a chef that came into an organization. A lot of times there's a stereotype about dietitians like, remove X, Y, and Z and make it just perfect. And, chefs, we want to put more fat, more butter and everything. But, you appreciated the artistry of it. And I think that helps because we can find common ground and create from that.
Oh, to me, food is one of the pleasures of life.
Yeah.
Why would you want to eat or have a diet where there were all these restrictions? That would just be the opposite of what, to me, food is meant to be.
Right.
So yes, I think I know a lot about food and I appreciate good food, even if I can't personally produce good food.
Yeah. Now, you said that you started at Ohio State in which capacity?
Well, here's how I got to Ohio State. I was running a weight management program out of Dublin in a Dublin medical clinic, and Ohio State was starting a weight management program. And that program that I had created for Dublin when I moved to Columbus was very successful.
Mm-hmm.
So they called and said, hey, why don't you come and interview? We're starting a weight management program. So I went over to interview, and I will never forget this. I was interviewing with an administrator, and she said, we have this other position vacant and we haven't been able to fill it.
Oh, that's a sales pitch, right?
And it's a food service director. And I looked at her and I'm like thinking, is she crazy?
Yeah.
I've never managed more than 12 people. I'm not a very good cook. I told the truth on my resume. I didn't have any degrees from Ohio State, because most people do that go
Sure.
to work there. And I said, well, maybe, but I want to make sure I'm stay in the running for the weight management job, because I know I can do that one.
Yeah.
And 6 months later, food service director was the offer they made, and I took it.
So it's interesting that you kind of fell into it a little bit. It wasn't your chosen path, and you spent many years in that role. Many years. And so food service is an interesting business. It's, as I mentioned, it can be challenging. There's ups, there's downs. There's a lot of people involved, a lot of personalities. What kept you in that food service role so long? Because it didn't sound like that was where you wanted to go originally.
And I think that's a key question when we talk about career path. And one of the ways that I would answer that is, first, what convinced me to actually say yes, because that's a huge risk, right? And if you fail, Ohio State's a very public place. It would be a very public failure in my mind.
Yeah.
But
not a good resume marker, right?
Not a good resume marker. But we're a very connected industry. And I had friends in the industry, including some of the folks that I had worked with at Cleveland Clinic, who went to bat for me.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, she's right. She doesn't have the skill set, but she will learn the skill set if you give her the opportunity to learn that. And what could be a better reference than that, especially coming from Cleveland Clinic? And what I would say is, find mentors outside of your immediate circle who maybe see skills in you that you don't see in yourself, and push you a little bit to go for it. So I am forever grateful. My old boss at the clinic, who was still a very good friend of mine, said, "Are you crazy? The OSU name's a great one. They're asking you to go for it. Go for it." Yeah. So you want to make sure you surround yourself with people who maybe see potential in you that you don't see in yourself.
That's a great way to put it. And it sounds like you believe in something that I've always believed in, and has led me to many different places in my career. The way I learn is, I want a leader who gives me what they want done and the important points of it, and then gives me the rope to figure some stuff out on myself. Now, I was always told that there were rails there, and sometimes I had to be put back on the rails because I'd get a little off track.
Really?
But right, but hard to believe. But I think that's so important, to let people navigate themselves, because you learn so much. Even from, I've always said I learn more from the misses than sometimes getting it right the first time. And you create yourself in those moments, I think.
I absolutely agree with you, and we have to give you that opportunity. But I also look at when we went into Ohio State, and the management team was all dietitians. Mm-hmm. That was a problem. Mm-hmm. And Julie Jones, who was my assistant director and who followed me as director, but we made a conscious decision that we needed culinary skills. We didn't have them. Yeah. And we were a little criticized when we brought in our first chef because he wasn't a dietitian. And
he is not a dietitian.
No. But my point was,
great chef.
We had a brain trust of dietitians. We had plenty of that. And the reason I think that we became so successful at Ohio State was because I knew enough to know that I didn't have the financial acumen. I didn't have the culinary acumen. So we needed to consciously look to bring in those people. And I'm not going to tell you what to do. I need to be able to identify the talent, bring it in, and get the environment so you could develop that talent. But that was, I think, why we were able to eventually become a very successful food service.
So that kind of tees up a really good question, I think, because you've built multiple teams over the years. Yes. And and there's always turnover, and a lot of it I see is healthy turnover. You bring somebody in, you teach them, and you get them ready for their next step, which I think is really good. Um, on the core, when you would sit down and interview somebody, what were some things that you would look for when you were talking to them, or when you would see them, kind of on the tour, as you would give people a tour of the facility and stuff?
Well, the time they would get to me would be they'd already kind of passed interview 1 and interview 2.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wouldn't even look at their resume because I knew that people that were closer than those skill sets were looking at that. So they wouldn't be talking to me if they hadn't kind of passed that already. So what you look is for relatability.
Okay.
Can I work with this person? When I introduce them to someone, how do they treat that person? Are they inner directed or are they other directed?
Right.
Because those are the things you can't teach.
Yeah.
Or do they have the potential to do that?
Yeah.
So I would say the thing that I interviewed with people is how could they possibly get along? They don't have to be extroverts. They don't have to be public speakers, but they have to kind of demonstrate kindness.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say humbleness, but they can't be prima donnas in any way.
Absolutely.
So,
and one of the things that I was taught, and I hadn't thought about this, and as I was touring people around the facility, they would see our staff that was already there. They would, sometimes have to walk around them, or, we would be in the middle of a kitchen and it'd be obviously a high traffic area. And they taught me, look at how they interact with the staff.
exactly.
Do they acknowledge them?
Mhm.
Do they, if they have to walk by them, do they say, excuse me? Because that's showing you the personality and a little bit inside look at somebody, or if they just stand there and don't make eye contact, and not that was always the yes, no decision maker, but I think it really gave you a look into that person.
And it not only tells you if the staff is going to be comfortable with them, are they going to be comfortable in this kind of kitchen, in this environment?
Yeah.
Because you know what our environment was like. It was very, very hectic and very deadline driven. Yeah.
I mean, we were feeding a mass amount of patients and visitors every single day, and managing a staff of, I can't even remember the amount now, but
200 to 300.
200 to 300. And, it was challenging, but, I think, to your point, we started figuring out the right people for those right seats, and it just clicks when you get there.
And the other thing that I learned over time was healthcare food service is logistics, right? It's really all about logistics. Yes, we need culinary skills, but we need them at this point in the past, right? And when I went on to become, work in administration at the medical center, the thing that I learned when we had crises is that everything else can be stopped, diverted. Even if it's a trauma, we can send it to the other, level 1 emergency room. But food service has to happen. I cannot go in and say, gee, I don't have any staff today. I'm going to serve you breakfast at dinner.
Right.
Most of my other departments, we could do a workaround. So you have to have people that are reliable and that you can trust are going to show when you need them. So that might be the other thing, I guess, when you say, maybe you can't see that at an interview, but if you're going to stay with us, you need to be 100% reliable. You need to deliver, and you need to deliver on time.
So you mentioned multiple departments there, and obviously I know that you did. What was it like? What were some of the biggest challenges you ran into managing multiple departments? Because I'm assuming food service is not like any of the other departments that you managed.
That's very true.
For better or worse, nothing against the other departments. Yeah.
So, some of the unique ones like bereavement and family care, when I actually worked with the staff who kind of identified who might die today. and we could start to see behind the scenes if we have next of kin, and or if it's a possible organ donor, then we would start to work with Lifeline in Ohio. Think about how different that is.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I learned is, and I believe why I was tapped for administration, is that food service is the most diverse department because you have your clinicians. You know, we have our PhD clinicians, and hospitals are clinician driven, but you have the business part of it. We had the retail cafes. We did cash business. We had to learn about cash handling. We had to learn about delivery and timing and contracting with all of those companies that didn't work with the other. It's not hospital supply. So you come into it with a skill set that most other administrators don't have.
Right.
You also have entry-level staff, and you know how to communicate and work with them, and that is a privilege. A lot of people in hospitals only know how to communicate to other professionals.
Yeah.
So I actually think if you can do food service, you can do any of the other ones. It's more like, what do I need to let go?
Yeah.
Not as much as what do I need to learn.
Now, with wearing that many hats, did you find, is your style where you would have to shift gears and say, okay, I'm in food service management mode, or I'm in bereavement mode, or were you able to kind of take it all as it came and just...
You know what? I'm a boots on the ground.
Yeah.
So anytime I would get a department, I would want to go there and spend
Experience
real time with them, so that I didn't know the department by email. And you know, Ohio State, for a while, I had something in every building we owned around the city. But I kind of liked that. You know, I liked going over to the ambulatory care bureau. I liked going over to the community hospital. I liked going out to the maternity, you know, the local maternity resident clinic.
Yeah.
And you want to understand, if you're going to be, all those departments have directors.
Yeah.
My job is to make the director's job easier. What are your challenges? What can I help you with at this level so that you can take care for our patients? And so the approach is the same.
Yeah.
My approach was the same. I didn't have to be an expert in that area. I just had to understand what their challenges are enough so that I could help them do what we need to do, which was
and have the right people to do their jobs, right? And hold them accountable.
Yeah.
So that's awesome, and I appreciate the look back there. But over the years, obviously, with food service, I know you've won a multitude of awards, and I'm certain, you know, in some of the other departments as well. One that I find most impressive, being in this industry, is the Silver Plate Award from IFMA. And you know, it's still a little bittersweet to me, because you won, I think the month after I started was NRA, and the most of the food service nutrition team, you took them to Chicago for this award, which is outstanding. Being the new guy, I didn't get to go, which is understandable. I had to stay back. I get it.
You missed a good part.
But, you know, you were inducted with the chef Charlie Trotter and Richard Marriott, amongst other people, and got to just have these incredible experiences with Chef Trotter, one of the icons of the industry. So, you know, if you don't mind kind of looking back on that, not just the Charlie Trotter part, but just that whole experience of winning that silver plate, what it meant, and kind of everything that went into it a little bit to get there.
Well, it was a real honor. You don't nominate yourself for the silver plate. People nominate you. And it usually takes some time. And it's not just about what we did at Ohio State, although I think you were part of that. We really turned Ohio State, or transitioned it into one of the industry leaders in terms of healthcare food service. But the fact, it's what you give to the industry as well. And so I've worked with a lot of professional groups, you know, worked with a lot of, mentored a lot of people. We've seeded so many other people from Ohio State who were elsewhere.
Right.
So it was great. And I remember when my family came, none of who are in food service. And my son-in-law said to me, he goes, I have no idea what you do, Mary, but if you're to healthcare food, what Dick Marriott is to hotels, I think I'm impressed.
Right. I mean, he's right, obviously,
That was funny.
you know?
And then Charlie was amazing because his restaurant was in Chicago.
Yeah.
So he hosted a special lunch or brunch for us on Sunday morning.
He's just twisting that knife. Yeah.
And did actually cook some of the food himself. Yeah. And so I will say that probably every silver plate class is special, but I thought ours was really special. It was a great experience.
That's awesome. Yeah. And well-deserved, you know,
Thank you.
obviously.
Thank
congratulations. And you did bring me back a signed book from Charlie Trotter. So I still have that as my memento. So as I'm giving her grief about it, obviously.
But you've been to the show since
multiple times. And I did get to eat at Charlie Trotter's once in my career. So, but yeah, that had to just be an incredible experience. And, you know, that's a hard-earned, but a well-earned award. And I think you said it best with it's industry peers and people that are nominating you for this. So you really do have to make an impact, not just in your world, but outside of your world. Yes. And that's why if you look at the list of winners, it is so very impressive. So congratulations. That's outstanding.
Many have become very good friends over the years. And it's good to have friends in food service outside of your segment. Like I'm going to Yale next week with Rafi Taharian will be here, who's over food services at Yale. And that'll just be a fun experience. So
well, I think you get a different perspective if you cohabitate outside of your career, especially, the hotel world is completely different. I know the gentleman from Denny's won the silver plate one year, which is, you'd think Denny's, but the operation and the pieces that have to keep that machine moving and someone who's been in this industry as long as I have, you want to pull examples of leadership and style from every different aspect, which creates you and your system, that's a very good point you bring up. So you retired a few years ago.
Yes.
Well, I don't know if you retired because you're still doing a lot.
I left.
And you're still instructing, and you left your first career, and now you're on to your others with your owning your business and your instructing, which is, I'm sure, both full-time jobs at the same time. But I think it's interesting that you've really embraced doing fun things. And I don't think that there were things that you couldn't do when you were working, but I think my guess is you probably created a bucket list of stuff you wanted to do. And I have to say, I think I've known you I did the math this morning, probably about 16 years now. Okay. And one of the things that you're doing now or just got done doing, I have to say still surprised me because I never would have seen this. And I think it's incredible. You took an improv class, correct?
I did.
Yeah. And so what did that you were obviously going out, I don't want to say looking for something, but you go into something for an experience. What was the experience you were really wanting to get it out, and what did you get from it? Because I feel like you probably got more than you thought you were going to get out of it.
I think that's really true. Well, one, I do a lot of public speaking. I do a lot of moderating, and I do a lot of interviewing for media. So I looked at improv as a way to help develop those skills in terms of thinking on the spot when you're moderating a session, bringing the best out of those people, summarizing it. So it was on my list, but it was so much better and more fun than I ever expected. And we ended with a live show
at the Funny Bone, Club. Right?
Yeah, I had 16 people of my closest friends and family in attendance.
I can't imagine having, I do a lot of public speaking, and I can't imagine getting on stage at the Funny Bone. That just seems like such a far reach. So that's crazy and awesome.
The instructor for our course was amazing. And it's not stand-up comedy. It's all about the group communication
Yeah.
and how you step up when it's your turn and you step back and let somebody else shine when it's theirs. And the lessons learned from that are so applicable to not only what I do with speaking, but I almost wish I would have had this years ago, because we talk about how important communication
Right.
skills are, but how much training do we really get? And this is all about team communication, not one-on-one communication.
Well, and that's what I immediately, when you said what you got out of it, I heard that's leadership 101. You want to learn that. You need to have that to be successful, especially the shining part, because in our roles at times, people will come to us for, and look for answers, and we had to be the ones to have that answer, but there's other people in the department that sometimes need to have that spot, and we can showcase their skill sets, and knowing when to allow those, or not allow, but let those people come forward and take that spotlight, I think is very, very important, along with the communication. I think that's huge.
Well, and to take what you said just one step further, one of the other tenets that we learned was every suggestion is a gift. So in my industry, you've talked about how long I've been in it. It's unusual that somebody comes to you with something that you don't already know,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe even know more about them than they do.
Yeah.
But that's not what's important. What's important is hearing their take on it. What does their suggestion tell you about them, and maybe what they want to know or what they can do? And it forces you to pause and say, this is not about who knows more about it. It's what can I learn from this suggestion you're giving me, whether I know about the topic or not. To me, that was another great improv takeaway.
Yeah. Now, do you think you'll continue to do that?
Well, there is improv too.
There is improv too. Okay.
And you can take improv one as many times as you want.
Right.
I will tell you that I enjoyed it so much. I have to schedule it where I won't miss a class.
Yeah.
And I travel so much.
Yeah.
So that's a challenge.
I could really, you mentioned, I know you do a lot of public speaking and things like that, and people look to you for a lot of advice in this industry, and you do a lot of coaching and mentoring still. I could really see you taking this improv style class thing and really incorporating it into the industry that you love so much. Yes. And helping develop, these teams that are out there by teaching them just what you learned in that one simple class that nobody's going to go into an improv class thinking I'm going to be a better leader. Right. But I think you've stumbled across something where, you could go to, work with different groups or different conferences and really showcase how this could be done. Mm-hmm. And I think that would be an incredible use for that.
And I have to say too, I have 6 sisters, but I am the witty sister.
You're the witty one.
So it was a chance to develop to that.
Yeah. Now were there was obviously, I'm assuming, tons of belly laughs and just great. But you did refer to it's not stand-up comedy, it's improv. Did you find, I'm assuming you found humor in it, but did you kind of find your funny side while you were doing that, or your style, I guess?
I think we do a lot of different activities.
Yeah.
And I learned which activities that I liked. So when we did the show, some of the skits were all in, so you don't have a choice.
Yeah.
But others, I said, oh, I really want to be on Dr. Know-It-All.
Yeah.
So you found those exercises that spoke to you, or that you thought brought out your funny side or your entertaining
That's awesome.
side. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. And it probably got you out of your comfort zone in other places.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Which is, that's always huge. I've always been a big proponent of getting out of my comfort zone and knowing what your weaknesses are so you can attack them and work on them. That's how you become better at anything. Yeah. So thanks for that. But so earlier you mentioned being a foodie. Right. And I know you really do appreciate the artistry of culinary. And do you have a favorite I don't want to say a favorite food because I feel like that's really limiting it too much, but a favorite style of food or type.
So I'll answer both really because I have two favorite single foods. I love tomatoes and I love pears. And to
Oh.
me, a perfect pear can make my day. So for better or for worse, I guess that's the dietitian in me.
Yeah.
I did grow up with Italian food mostly because my grandparents, at least on my mom's side, emigrated from Italy. And I do a lot of work with the Mediterranean diet roundtable. And I just like that approach.
Okay.
And it's not just Greek in Italy. It's the whole Mediterranean basin over history. Yeah. And I've learned some things working with this group that have informed even the way I eat at home, like the importance of extra virgin olive oil. I never thought about that before.
Oh, and if you ever have a chance to go to a vineyard where they're pressing olive oil and seeing that process, it's incredible.
Oh, I'll put that on
incredible.
You've done it.
I've done it. We were in Napa Valley with Hormel, and one of the vineyards had an olive grove.
Okay.
And I love olives, and they said, do not eat one off the tree because it's the most disgusting thing ever, and you will never want to eat an olive again. So I said, okay. So they showed us these, 5-ton granite wheels that are just crushing these olives, and explained first press and how you get extra virgin olive oil, and then you do tastings, and it's just something that I think you would absolutely love.
I think
because you just feel old world Italian when you're standing in this press room. It's really cool.
Wow, I've been to a vineyard where we did balsamic vinegar aging, but I've not been to an olive oil vineyard.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, cool.
So that's great. And again, it doesn't surprise me. There's diversity in your answer because I think, you enjoy life. And so I don't think you limit yourself. You didn't limit yourself in your career, obviously. And now even in your retirement, you haven't limited yourself. And I think you're up for whatever experience, even with food and everything, which is great. So to wrap up, I thank you for your time, but I still feel like your career's got many, many years left. I don't want to upset you, but I really want you to be doing this for many, many more years. And because I think you have a lot to offer. At the end of the career, though, if you had to put a bookmark in it, what do you think you would want people to say about what you did in the industry or for the industry or about you?
Well, I look at one of the small things that I do now, which is food safety. That's my little nerd side. I was president of the high school biology club. But people say, why would you take that piece into retirement? And I'm using this as an example of, as I guess would want people to say, I helped them because I could. And you can do a lot more now. You can do a lot when you're in the position we had, like help mentor people and get them through challenges in their life and career. But I'm able to do a lot more now just because I can. And I'll give you an example during COVID. I had a woman call me and she said, my husband died. Later she said, my husband was murdered. And he was, because Columbus put on the front page of the paper one day all the homicides that had spiked, and the name was there. And she said, we had a restaurant, but he had all the certifications. I'm changing it into a ghost restaurant. I've got kids to support. I've got the health department coming in 2 weeks. I need to have my food certification, and nobody is offering classes. You're the only one who's answered the phone. And to me, this is like, oh, I can do this. I have the flexibility. I have the training. I don't need to make this financially worthwhile. So I look at everything I've done up to here is now giving me a way to really maybe make a difference. Not a big difference, but a big difference for one person. Yeah. And I was her first order on DoorDash when she opened her ghost kitchen. So,
no, I think that's an outstanding answer.
Yeah, that's just what you can do now, but I owe so much to the career that I came up with. to be able to sit back and say, hey, I can do this because I can.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that's outstanding. So, well, thank you so much, Mary, for coming in. I've always valued you so much as a mentor. I valued our friendship over the years, and we've had so many good interactions and conversations, and I've just learned a ton from
Thank you,
from not
Joe.
just talking to you, but just from watching. So I thank you so much for your time, because I know it is valuable. And I wish you the best of luck in everything that you do. And if there's anything I can ever do to help,
well, I do reach out to you.
You do.
You are my contact when I need something in this.
We show each other really cool new stuff when it comes out. So, but thank you so much.
Sure.
And for everybody watching out there, please try to make it a great day for somebody today.
There you go.
Thank you.